Hi, this is Don McAllister, and welcome to another Screencasts Online weekly tip video. Spotlight is the underlying indexing technology built into both the Mac and iOS, and it allows you to quickly find many different types of information on your Mac and iOS devices. Now, this week I'll be taking a look at Spotlight on iOS. Now, Spotlight indexing is used in two places on iOS. It's used in the Spotlight search panel, and it's also used when using Lookup. And to get to the Spotlight search panel, that's a swipe down from the center of the screen. I can see my Siri app suggestions, some search suggestions, and then the search panel itself. But before we actually start using Spotlight, let's have a look at how we configure it first. Now, Spotlight on iOS is configured via the settings icon. So we go into settings, and then in settings, if you go to general, and then under general, we have an option for Spotlight search. At the top of the page, we've got the option to enable or disable Siri Suggestions. And Siri can suggest apps and keywords based on your usage and history. So if I actually switch that off, and if we go back to the search panel, you'll see that those icons that we had before and the search terms have now disappeared. So we've actually disabled that. If I go back in, let's go back into settings, re-enable that, and then press on the home button, swipe down from the middle of the page. Right, I've now got my Siri app suggestions back again, and my search terms have actually been cleared out, but they will start to be added in as I use the device. But let's say cancel to that, and we'll go back into setup. Below Siri Suggestions are Spotlight suggestions. So when we use search or when we use Lookup, and we'll look at these individually, Spotlight can suggest results from the web, iTunes, App Store, film showtimes, etc. And the way that works, and let's take a look at suggestions in search first. So if I come out of here, and again, if I go into search for a random word. So Tivoli, I've got suggested websites. Let me pop the keyboard out of the way. I've got maps, I've got Wikipedia, I've got films, so it's pulling in data from iTunes. I've got news, web videos, Bing search. And then at the bottom, I can actually go ahead and do a straightforward web search. I can search the App Store, or I can search maps. Now, of course, I can tap on any of these to jump to these particular references, but let's say cancel to that for now. As far as Lookup is concerned, using Spotlight suggestions in Lookup, Lookup is when you look up a word or a phrase in an application. So for instance, if I go into Safari, I'm at the BBC News site. If I scroll down, if I want to look up a word, it's this prosecution, I can tap, select the word, and I get the option to look up in the pop-up menu. Tap Lookup. And because I have the Spotlight suggestions switched on for Lookup, I get the dictionary, I get entries in Wikipedia, entries in films, suggested websites, and then I can do a standard web search as well if I want. In fact, let me do a standard web search. So if I just tap on Search Web, you'll see it goes away, goes into Safari. It's doing a standard Google search. Let me just get rid of this privacy reminder. Okay, that's fine. So this is a standard Google search for prosecution. Now, if you have any issues with using Google and you want to use a different web service, what you can actually do is to come out of here, go into settings, go into Safari. So you need to find Safari down here. There we go, there's Safari, and search engine. So currently by default it's Google, but if you tap on here, you can use Yahoo, Bing, or DuckDuckGo. Let's go with DuckDuckGo. Okay, so I can come out of here. Let me go back into Safari again, and let's close down that particular window. Let's tap on prosecution again, and we'll look up. Again, I get the same entries as before, but now if I do a search the web, there we go, it's actually taking me to DuckDuckGo rather than the standard Google web search. So let's go back into settings, and we'll go back into general and Spotlight search. So we've looked at suggestions in search and suggestions in Lookup. Now the options below are search results from applications. Now this is slightly misleading because not all applications have been configured to actually integrate with Spotlight search. It's something that the developers have to do. It's a few settings within the application that enable you to have deep linking into the application itself. So you might find that an application on here is listed, but when you actually try and search, you mightn't get any search results back from it. That's because the application hasn't been written to support Spotlight search. Now you might want to disable some of these apps anyway and have them not appear within your searches, but I'm going to demonstrate SCO Members, which is the SCO Members application. In fact, I've got SCO Showcase here as well. Now, just to clarify the difference between these two applications, because it does cause some confusion, SCO Members is the application for Screencast Online members, and that enables them to log into their user account and access the last 3 years worth of tutorials automatically. SCO Showcase is meant for non-members, and it allows you to access some free content, but mainly to purchase individual tutorials. So I'm actually going to go ahead and switch off SCO Showcase for this demo. I'm just going to use the SCO Members application. So we'll come out of here. If I swipe down from the middle of the screen, let's say I want to search for, well, I remember seeing some tutorials about database applications, and I want to find them again. I could go into the app and have a look and search for database, but I can do it from here. So if I search for database, so let me just pop the keyboard out of the way. Options in Wikipedia, options within the App Store, some suggested websites. Now, the Screencast Online magazine is also Spotlight enabled, so you can actually see here I've got 2 issues of the Screencast Online magazine on my device that has a reference to Airtable database for Mac and iOS, parts 1 and part 2. So I could go straight to the magazine, but if I keep scrolling down, here we go, SCO Members. So I've got access here to Tapforms 5, database for Mac and iOS, and the Airtable shows parts 1 and part 2. And the neat thing is, if I actually tap into here, so tap into part 1, it will actually go away, open the SCO Members app, and drop me straight in at the Airtable database for Mac and iOS part 1 screen. So I can actually view it from here directly. Now, if I just go back to the home screen, and if I do another search, you'll see that it's remembered I last searched for database. Now my top hit is Airtable database for Mac and iOS part 1. My SCO Members has now come to the top of the screen. So I can see some additional ones as well. In fact, I can tap on Show More, and I can see all the tutorials contained within the SCO Members application that are related to databases. So Devon Think, Eagle Filer, Task Manager, lots and lots of different database related applications. If you want to learn more about using your Apple devices, there are over 700 full video tutorials available to Screencast Online members, covering all aspects of the Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and even the Apple TV. Now, all full members receive a new Apple-related video tutorial each and every week, as well as a free subscription to the Screencast Online monthly magazine, packed with videos and articles on getting the most out of your Apple devices. Now, you can get your free 14-day trial membership over at screencastsonline.com, or check out some of the free content over on the SCO Showcase app on the iPad, iPhone, and Apple TV. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week with another tip, so I'll speak to you then.